This is a 2017 Volvo XC90. To the untrained eye, it may look like every other 2017 Volvo XC90, but this is different because this one is the Volvo XC90 Excellence, and that means it has a sticker price of $105,895. Yes, that's right, $106,000 for a Volvo. Today, I'm going to take you on a tour of this thing and show you what you get when you spend six figures on a Volvo. Six figures on a Volvo. My first car when I turned 16 was a Volvo, and my parents spent like $6,500 for it. And I never thought I'd be standing next to a Volvo that cost as much as a new Porsche 911. But as you've probably guessed, the XC90 Excellence isn't just any Volvo. So let me explain how this all works. The XC90 lineup starts with the Momentum model, which starts around $48,000, less than half the price of this. That means the Excellence doubles the price of the base XC90 with just features and options and equipment and trim. Next up in the XC90 range is the Inscription, which is the luxury version, and the R Design, which is the sporty model, and then there's this, the Excellence, which is designed for people who want to be chauffeured around in their Volvo. Now, as you've probably guessed, this also has an engine upgrade from the base model. It uses a 400 horsepower four-cylinder that's turbocharged and supercharged, and it's a plug-in hybrid. Yeah, this isn't a car you want to own out of warranty. I've borrowed this XC90 Excellence from Oarsman Volvo here in Bethesda, Maryland, in the Washington, D.C. area, and they have two. And these are really rare. Most Volvo dealers aren't even getting one. Today, I'm going to show you all of its cool quirks and its weird features and, well, what makes this a $100,000 Volvo. And then I'm going to get behind the wheel and see how it drives. And then, of course, I'm going to give it a Doug score. And for more of my thoughts on my $100,000 Volvo experience, click the link below to go to autotrader.com/oversteer, where I've written a column about it, and where I've also compiled a list of the coolest and most unusual Volvo models currently for sale on AutoTrader. Now, I'll start on the outside, where at first glance there are only a couple of clues that you're looking at the vaunted XC90 Excellence. For example, there's chrome trim around the windows compared to black trim in all of the other XC90s, and on the bottom of the front doors is a little badge in chrome that says Excellence. Otherwise, you'd have no way of knowing you're looking at the $100,000 Volvo until you open the rear door. At that point, it becomes incredibly obvious. Now, when you open the door and climb in the back, the first thing you notice is that some seats have disappeared. The standard XC90 seats 7 with a 3-person bench back here and then 2 extra seats in the back, but this is a luxury build designed for chauffeuring you around, and so instead there are only 2 bucket seats here and no more seats further back. You're further reminded that this is a luxury build when you look at the rear headrests, which say on them, Excellence by Sweden. Not by Volvo or by the company that makes the leather, but by Sweden. Imagine if you climbed into a GMC Yukon and it said Denali by America. I find this very amusing. Now, this car also displays its luxury status in a few other ways. For example, the sound system. This car has a 19-speaker Bowers & Wilkins sound system. There's speakers virtually everywhere you look, and some of them look really finely crafted. In addition, speaking of finely crafted, how about the wood on the door panels on the dashboard? It's this unfinished, beautiful wood that's really attractive to look at and gorgeous to touch. And in back, since this is supposed to be a luxury chauffeur-driven vehicle, the rear seats can move forward, backward, up, down. They're power operated just like the front seats in a normal car, and they're even heated and they're even cooled, so you can easily find your optimal comfort situation if you're a rear seat passenger. You can probably see these things on the back of the front headrest. Those are for iPads. You can remove them, of course, or you can stick them in and then stick an iPad there. And another luxury touch in the back is the climate touchscreen, which is located between the 2 seats. It's surprisingly easy to use and satisfying to touch. It responds immediately to your fingers, but most importantly, it allows 2 different climate zones. So the person on this side can have the temperature at one setting, and the person on this side can have it at another setting. Also, like the front seat in most normal cars. But folks, all nice luxury cars now give the back seats the ability to move and be heated and cooled, and everybody has iPad on the back of the front seats. If you want to impress me, you got to do a lot better than that, and the XC90 does. We will start with The champagne flutes. Yes, that's right. There are two separate champagne flutes back here, each marked with the brand name of Orifors, a company whose logo appears to be a seal. I'm surprised it doesn't simply say Sweden on them. Now, you'll notice the champagne flutes don't have a base like a normal champagne flute you'd buy at the store. Well, that's because there's an area inside the center console that you just stick them in when you aren't sipping from them as your chauffeur drives you down the street. And that way, you don't have to worry about any spillage. By the way, those champagne flutes, they cost $300 each, and they are not the most impressive thing back here. That honor might go to the little pop-out menu that you have inside the rear center console. Now, the pop-out menu allows you to turn on your heated seat or to turn on your ventilated seat. That much is obvious, but it also gives you the option to turn on the heated or cooled cup holder, and check this out. You turn it on heated, and the cup holder itself turns red. You turn it on cooled, and the cup holder turns blue. Come on, that's kind of cool attention to detail, even if it is a little bit gimmicky. The other thing you can do with the little screen back here, you can adjust the position of the front passenger seat in case you're sitting on this side and you want a little bit more room. But the luxury in back doesn't even come close to ending there. Take a look down here on the side of the rear center console. You will see some additional rear seat storage. That's a nice little touch. And of course, that's not all. There are also rear picnic tables back here. I never thought I'd say that about a Volvo. Open up the center console, you pull out the rear picnic tables, and you can extend them over your lap so you can eat your lunch or work while you're being chauffeured down the street. There's even a little cutout where you can place a drink. And speaking of the rear center console, open it up and you'll find that it's surprisingly deep, and it has a regular household style outlet, so you can plug in whatever you have to. And what's that second rear center console back here? Why, that would be the refrigerator. Now, a lot of cars have rear refrigerators, strangely enough, but this one is the biggest I've ever seen. It is big enough for 2 giant champagne bottles, and you can take the champagne flute from the center console and put it in the refrigerator if you want it to be chilled. In a Volvo. And the crazy luxury stuff in back still isn't done yet. Take a look behind the seats. That's where you will see the first piece of glass in front of the rear glass. That's because there's a partition between the rear seats and the cargo area. Volvo says this is to keep out road noise, though I personally don't really get it. Are you trying to keep out the road noise that comes from the cargo area? Anyway, it's there, and it makes this car just that much more luxurious. And in the back, a little bit darker. Now, speaking of the lighting in the back of this car, if you look around, you will see that you have nice colored mood lighting on the ceiling of this vehicle. Well, it turns out you can change the color of that mood lighting using the infotainment system in the front. Take a look. Maybe even more amazing, you can change the mood lighting to various different colors based on your preference, as you can see, but you can also change the mood lighting to correspond to the temperature. So, when you get into your XC90 on a very hot day, the lighting can be red, and as the interior starts to cool down, it starts to turn from red gradually to blue. I'm serious, it can do that. Now, I'll go through some of the other cool things in the infotainment system in a minute, but for now I'm going to show you some of the other cool features you get when you choose the Excellence model. Like, for example, the shifter is crystal, made by the same company with the seal logo that makes the champagne flutes in the back. It's crystal. Look at this beautiful shifter, much better than the plastic crap you get in the normal XC90. Another cool feature you get in the XC90 Excellence is the key. Now, in the XC90 Excellence and the inscription, the key is leather wrapped, and in the back of the key in the Excellence it says Excellence by Sweden once again. The weird thing about the key is that almost the entire surface area of the key is devoted to the Volvo logo and the Excellence by Sweden badge. The buttons are almost an afterthought, placed on the side, hidden from view. Then again, this is one of those cars you just walk up to it and the door unlocks and opens, so you don't really have to worry about pushing the buttons very often. Still, it's kind of strange. Moving on to the cargo area of the XC90 Excellence, which is surprisingly robbed of space due to that partition they stick back there, we find a box full of Volvo goodies that are delivered with every XC90 Excellence. Enough to make any Volvo enthusiast happy. For example, there is a bag where you put the charge cable. There's this box with the Volvo logo that includes screens for the iPad that go inside. There is Volvo leather care wipes. Make sure you have these when this car sells at Barrett Jackson. And then there's my personal favorite, the Volvo car key box kit. It's this very high-end box that they give you to place your keys in when you buy the car. Then you put it in your closet, you forget about it, and you never see it again until you move. One more interesting feature you only get in the Excellence model, the interior trunk release. Listen to this. Because this car has that partition back there, the rear is technically a trunk. It's separated from the passenger compartment, and that means Volvo needs to put in an an emergency interior trunk release in case you get stuck back here in some sort of kidnapping attempt, just like every other car with a trunk. Cars with cargo areas, traditional ones, don't need that, but because the partition is there, Volvo has to put it in, and so they do. But only in the Excellence model with the partition. Another interesting thing about the cargo area and the partition is that because the partition's there and because that rear center console, you can't put the rear seats down, which further limits practicality in the back of this car. Now, those are all the cool quirks and features of the Excellence model, but the XC90 itself has some pretty cool quirks and features on its own. I'm going to show them to you now, starting with the headlights. Now, you can see right now that the running light is on. That's always on, and it's this cool LED light strip. But put the turn signal on, and look what happens. The turn signal replaces the LED running light. It's kind of a cool look. Turn the turn signal off and the running light comes right back on in its place. I love that. Since I'm around the front, moving under the hood, which isn't really all that impressive, there's a lot of plastic under here and a fairly small engine on account of this being a plug-in hybrid with a 4-cylinder. But you also do have one of my favorite little XC90 quirks here, and that would be the little warning label under the hood that warns you not to jump this car. It's got the little Volvo logo on that. I love that warning label. If somebody made t-shirts with that warning label on it, I would definitely buy one. Another interesting thing I've noticed about the XC90 is the sound of its chimes. Most car chimes sound about the same, but not in the XC90. Take a listen to some of the weird chime sounds you hear around this car. Couple of other interesting quirks in the XC90. One of them is the windshield wipers. Now, unlike normal cars that have washer jets that come out of the hood, this one has windshield washer jets inside the wipers. So when the wipers wipe while it's washing, it just goes in the path of the wipers and not all over everything, which is kind of annoying. Another thing I love about this car is the starter. It's not a button and you don't stick the key in. Instead, it's this dial that you just turn, and it feels so satisfying for some reason to turn that and hear the engine roar to life. That big 4-cylinder. I also like the drive mode selector dial, which feels really nice and allows you to change between the drive modes. It's kind of satisfying to run your hand up and down and quickly change from drive mode to drive mode. And then there's the infotainment system, which is this giant screen that's bigger than just about every other car's screen except for maybe Tesla. It has some really cool features. Starting with this one, you can change the XC90's sound experience to mimic the Gothenburg Concert Hall, which is the hall where the symphony orchestra plays in Gothenburg, where Volvo is headquartered. Seriously. And how about this? Go into communication and the car has all these ways to communicate with you. I count 8, including modem internet. It's a brave new world, folks. And how about language? Most cars let you choose Spanish or French. This thing goes on and on and on. I have truly never seen so many languages in my life. You can even pick Vlaams. Vlaams! Of course, there's also a really nice 360-degree camera system that works really well, and a great navigation system whose map moves precisely where you touch it and has the all-important pinch-to-zoom feature. I also love adjusting the climate control in this car. It's incredibly intuitive to change the amount of air or change where the air is coming out, and adjusting the temperature is done with these cool little sliders. One thing I don't like about this car, the shifter. It is infuriating. When you're in park, shifting it into drive, you can't just pull it back and then you're in drive like every other shifter. That just pulls it back one gear. You're in reverse. Pull it back again, you're in neutral. Pull it back again, then you're in drive. If you want to quickly turn around to put it in reverse, you can't just stick it up and put it in reverse. That just puts it in neutral. Then you have to stick it up again to get in reverse. Back to drive, down 1 for neutral, down 2 for drive. It's really, really annoying, and I can't believe they designed it this way, but it's my only real complaint about the ergonomics of this car. Okay, so the XC90 Excellence has proven that it isn't just a regular old Volvo, at least with all its features, but does it drive like a $100,000 car? Time to find out. All right, I am now driving a $100,000 Volvo. You just have the most immense, luxurious levels of road insulation. It feels like some of the true high-end luxury cars that I review sometimes. You know, the infotainment screen in this car, I've used a lot of infotainment screens over the last 6 months, year. The infotainment screen in this car is so much easier to use than everything else except maybe Tesla. It instantly responds to your touches. It surprisingly is intuitive. I say surprisingly because you'd think that like Ford or Honda would have the most intuitive system, but instead it's Volvo. It's just so quiet. This car is just tremendously quiet. This car just feels so good in traffic. It makes a lot of sense why someone would want to get one of these for around town driving. Everybody, oh, you get an SUV, you use that ground clearance? Well, in this car, I mean, it's so relaxing and nice and comfortable. Yeah, you're not going to use the off-road ground clearance, but you start to understand why people buy SUVs. You get this higher seating position, and it's just so relaxing and quiet and nice. One of the things I really like about the XC90 is a lot of automakers have kind of abandoned the luxury buyer. More and more car companies, including Lexus, are going for more high performance. Oh, we want, you know, sporty and all that. And Volvo has an R design model of this car, and this thing has 400 horsepower. It's not exactly slow, but this car is certainly tilted more towards comfort than performance. And I think there's a lot of buyers who actually want that, who just want to take their kids to school, and they want to, you know, even people who have nice sports cars just want a second car as a daily driver that they don't have to put up with, basically. And that's kind of how this feels. It's not quite on the level of Rolls and Bentley. I can hear a little bit more tire noise. I can hear a little bit more other car noise, but not all that much more. Going around that corner, handling is good. The body roll is stable. They've done a good job making it stable. The car doesn't feel as large as I know it is. And nonetheless, the steering is light and numb. I mean, it may be a sport utility vehicle, but it's not a sport utility vehicle. All right, I'm gonna floor it here. Oh, that's fine. You know, I become numb to cars. I mean, this thing does 0 to 60 probably in 6 point something seconds, which is probably excellent. It's very clear that the transmission is more designed for comfort and smoothness than performance. When you floor it, it takes a second, it kicks down a gear, 2 gears, you know. This car is good at that stuff, but I wouldn't consider it really excellent. This is definitely a car for people who are looking for a family car for the comfort and the features and the refinement aspect, the quietness, and not the performance. If you're one of these people who wants to combine performance and family car, like my AMG wagon, this isn't your vehicle. Even with the 400 horsepower, it may be pretty quick, but it's not that quick, and it doesn't steer all that sharply. Very easy to drive. The seating position is excellent. The visibility is good. You have giant mirrors. You can see everything out the windows. Obviously, the trim in the interior is excellent. I can't say enough good things about this infotainment system. The disappointment would be if you're a car enthusiast, this obviously isn't the sportiest vehicle. The biggest problem with this car is not the driving experience. It's not the technology. It's not the trim. It's just the badge. I mean, trying to sell a $100,000 Volvo. So that's the 2017 Volvo XC90 Excellence, the first Volvo to break the $100,000 barrier. It's hard to justify spending $100 grand for a vehicle whose base model is 50, and it's especially hard to justify it when you lose 3 seats in the process from a family SUV, and that's why the XC90 Excellence will be limited to just a few hundred units for the entire North American market. Instead, this car will find more buyers in China, where getting chauffeured around in your Volvo is actually surprisingly common, and it was designed specifically for the Chinese market. Nonetheless, it will find some buyers here in the United States, buyers who appreciate the last word in Volvo luxury, a Volvo that is equipped like a Rolls-Royce, so you can cart around your children and they can sit in the back in luxury, sipping from their finely crafted glasses filled with orange juice. Anyway, now it's time to move on to the Doug score. Starting with the weekend categories and styling, folks, say what you will about SUVs, but this is a truly beautiful one of the best looking SUVs of all time. Still, it's an SUV, not a sports car, so it can't match the greats, and it earns a 7 out of 10 in this category. Next up is acceleration, and it turns out the XC90 T8 does 0 to 60 in 5.8 seconds, giving it a 4 out of 10. Handling is fine, secure and predictable, but not sporty or sharp, and it earns a 5 out of 10. Cool factor is an interesting one. I think the XC90 isn't very cool. After all, it's a family car, but the Excellence is cooler than usual because it's so rare and expensive and luxurious, and it earns a 5 out of 10. Importance, however, isn't quite as high, especially with so few being made, and it earns a 4 out of 10, bringing the total weekend score to 25 out of 50 and placing it near the bottom. Then again, that's where it belongs. This thing wasn't exactly designed for sporty weekend use. Things are a little different in the daily categories. Starting with features, this thing has them all, and while I'm reserving a perfect score for cars with some breakthrough like Tesla Autopilot, this is the next best thing, and it earns a 9 out of 10. Comfort is also truly impressive. I debated this for a while, but ultimately decided yes, it deserves a 9 out of 10, meaning it's just one rung shy of Rolls-Royce and tied with the Bentley Bentayga. Did you see those champagne flutes?
Quality is also high. While I'm not sure how reliability will fare, the interior materials are truly top-notch and among the best in the business, and it earns an 8 out of 10. Practicality, however, has some issues. The standard XC90 has up to 85 cubic feet, which would easily earn it a 10, but the Excellence has that rear partition, which lowers cargo volume to around 40 cubic feet. Then there's the fact that you're paying more money for 4 seats instead of the usual 7, which hampers practicality further. Yes, fuel economy is good, but not good enough to save it from a 6 out of 10. And finally, there's value. This is an awesome car, but I strongly suspect nobody really wants to be chauffeured around in their Volvo. It just doesn't make any sense for $105,000 or $100,000 or even $90,000, and it gets a 3 out of 10. However, Oarsman Volvo, who lent me this car, currently has it for sale on their website for just under $78,000, and at that price point, it almost starts to make sense if you don't need 7 seats. Anyway, add it all up, and the total daily score is 35 out of 50, placing it near the very top, just behind the Bentayga and tied with my AMG wagon. That's pretty good company, and I think a regular, less expensive 7-seater XC90 Inscription would probably lead this category. Anyway, add it up and the total Doug score is 60 out of 100. I have no idea how that compares because I haven't really done any other luxury SUVs yet, but I do know it's better than the Lamborghini Countach. Excellence by Sweden.
Aisle you turn. For some reason it feels just so satisfying to turn it and speak